He thought it was just another grocery run. But in the shadows of the parking lot, a woman in a yellow hoodie was cornered by two men. Helping her should have ended there. Instead, it brought a gang to his doorstep, and pulled him into a fight for her life. Because she wasn't just running from trouble. She was carrying the one thing that could destroy them all. Before we begin, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. Jack Callahan liked his summers quiet. After years in the Marines, he'd traded deserts and gunmetal skies for the slow rhythm of small-town Oregon. Evenings meant grocery runs, a creaking F-150, and Emma waiting at home with dinner, probably reminding him she made the salad all by herself. He was halfway across the parking lot when a voice cut through the stillness. Low. Urgent. Let me go. Near the loading dock, under a flickering security light, two men had a woman backed against a wall. The yellow hoodie she wore was too thin for the cool night air. She was in her mid-20s, fit, alert, but her arms were pinned against the brick, and the set of her jaw said she'd been holding her ground for too long. Jack closed the distance fast, his voice sharp enough to make all three heads snap toward him. She with you? The bigger man straightened. Mind your business, old, he didn't finish. Jack stepped in, grabbed his jacket front, and drove him back hard enough to rattle the dumpster. The second man shifted his weight, thinking about it, then thought better. You okay? Jack asked the woman. She nodded once, though her eyes flicked to the dark beyond the loading dock, as if danger didn't end with these two. Trucks this way, he said. She hesitated, then followed. By the time he started the engine, the men had vanished. But in the rearview mirror, parked just beyond the glow of the streetlight, a black sedan idled. No headlights. No movement. Watching. The ride to Jack's place was quiet except for the steady hum of the tires. She sat with her hood up, hands in her lap, watching the dark slide by. Every so often, her gaze shifted to the side mirror, like she was checking for someone she knew would be there. Name's Jack, he said finally. Mia, she replied, voice low but steady. No last name. No small talk. Fine by him, silence had its uses. When he pulled into his gravel drive, the porch light came on. Emma stood at the screen door, waving like she'd been counting the seconds since he left. You're late. Lasagna's getting cold. Had a detour, Jack called, grabbing the grocery bags from the back. He glanced at Mia. Come in. Eat something. She looked like she might refuse, but the smell of garlic bread did its work. Inside, Emma's chatter filled the kitchen as she set a third plate without asking who it was for. Mia managed a small smile at the 11-year-old's confidence, though she kept her hoodie on, sleeves tugged low. Jack noticed. He also noticed how, every time headlights swept past the window, her shoulders stiffened. After dinner, Emma retreated to the living room with her homework. Jack stepped out to the porch for air. That's when he saw it, a black sedan at the far end of the street, same as the one from the lot. Engine off, no dome light, but he could feel eyes on the house. When he came back in, Mia was by the window, staring into the dark. They're not going to stop, she said without turning. Jack shut the door, locked it, and kept his voice even. Then maybe it's time you told me who they are. Mia didn't answer right away. She stayed at the window, arms crossed, watching the street like she'd memorized every shadow. They're with my stepbrother, she said finally. Or they work for him. Hard to tell the difference these days. Jack leaned against the counter, arms folded. And why would your stepbrother send people after you? She turned from the glass, eyes sharp but tired. Because he thinks I know where his money is. And if I don't, he'll make sure I'm not around to say otherwise. Jack waited. The money isn't his, she added. It belongs to his crew, people you don't want knocking on your door. A job went bad. Cash vanished. He's convinced I took it, or that my dad left me some kind of clue before he died. Her mouth twisted. He's wrong about the first part. Not so sure about the second. Jack didn't blink. Why not the cops? Her laugh was short and humorless. Half the uniforms in my neighborhood play poker at his place. The rest look the other way. He studied her for a moment. Marine instinct told him two things: she was telling the truth, and she was in over her head. Emma's voice drifted from the living room. "Dad, can Mia stay for movie night?" Mia looked at Jack. "I shouldn't be here. If they figure out I'm with you." "They already know," Jack said quietly. "That sedan's been out there for the last half hour." For the first time since he'd met her, Mia's eyes showed something beyond guarded resolve. Fear, and maybe the faintest flicker of hope that she wasn't facing it alone. Jack stepped onto the porch without a word, letting the night air cool the heat in his chest. The black sedan was still there, same angle, same dead-still silhouette in the driver's seat. Whoever they were patient. He'd met their type before. He went back inside and closed the blinds. "You can have the spare room," he told Mia. "But if you're staying here tonight, we do things my way." Her brow arched. "And your way is?" "Locks get changed. Lights stay off in the back rooms. No one leaves alone. You stick close to me or Emma, no exceptions." She studied him for a beat. "Marine?" Jack gave the faintest nod. "I've dealt with men who hunt in packs. Best way to keep them away is make the hunt look too costly." An hour later, the deadbolt was swapped, a motion sensor rigged to the side yard, and Jack's old service pistol cleaned and loaded. Emma, sensing the shift in her dad's mood, stayed curled up in the living room, half asleep under a blanket. From the kitchen doorway, Mia watched him test the window locks. "You've done this before," she said. Jack didn't look up. "Too many times." Midnight came. The street outside was empty now, the sedan gone. But Jack didn't relax. He knew leaving was as much of a tactic as staying. It meant they'd be back when the odds were better. When he finally turned in, he passed Mia's door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, yellow hoodie draped over her knees, staring at a worn leather envelope in her hands. She slid it under the pillow when she saw him. Jack didn't ask. Not yet. But he knew whatever was in that envelope was the reason trouble had followed her here. The first sound was faint, just a shift in the gravel driveway. Jack's eyes snapped open. Years of sleeping light meant he was already halfway to the dresser before he realized he'd moved. The digital clock read 2:14 a.m. He slid the pistol from its holster, thumbed the safety off, and padded to the hall. The house was still except for the hum of the fridge. Through the blinds, a shadow crossed the yard. Then another. Two figures, moving slow, careful. Jack knocked on Mia's door with the butt of his hand. She opened it a crack, eyes alert. "Up," he whispered. "We've got company." In the living room, Emma stirred on the couch, bleary-eyed. "Dad." "Quiet, baby," he said gently, ushering her toward the hall closet. "Stay here till I come back. No noise." Mia's voice was low but steady. "Let me help." "You got a weapon?" She reached under her hoodie, pulled a short, slim tactical knife from a sheath at her waist. Jack's brow lifted, not surprise, more like respect. They took positions by the front and side doors. The motion sensor outside gave a faint click, and the porch light flared on. One of the men froze in the beam, hand raised toward the doorknob. Jack swung the door open so fast the man stumbled. "You're trespassing," Jack said, voice even but edged with steel. The second figure, still in the shadows, called out, "We just want to talk to Mia." "She's not available," Jack replied. The first man recovered, stepping forward. You don't know what you're in the middle of, old man. Jack's stance didn't shift. Try me. Silence stretched. Then both figures backed away, melting into the dark as quietly as they'd come. Mia shut the door behind him, jaw tight. That was a test, she said. Jack holstered the pistol. Yeah. And they just learned I don't fail those. By morning, the intruders were gone, but Jack didn't trust the silence. He brewed coffee, made Emma's lunch, and kept the blinds drawn. Mia stayed at the kitchen table, hoodie pulled tight, staring at nothing. When Emma left for school with a neighbor, Jack sat across from her. You gonna tell me what's in that envelope, or do I have to keep guessing? For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out the worn leather. My dad's, she said quietly. I found it in his desk the night before the funeral. Didn't even know it existed until then. Jack opened it carefully. Inside were 3 folded sheets of paper, brittle with age, and a small Polaroid of a much younger Mia on her father's shoulders. The papers weren't sentimental, they were bank documents. Offshore accounts. Transactions worth more than most people would see in a lifetime. Your stepbrother know you have this? Jack asked. Her eyes met his. Not exactly. But he knows I was in Dad's office that night. He's convinced I took something. These papers, they connect his crew to a weapons deal that went bad. If this gets out, he loses everything: money, territory, protection. Jack slipped the papers back inside, closing the envelope with deliberate care. And if you burn it? She hesitated. Then he wins. And the people he's hurt keep getting hurt. Jack leaned back, rubbing a hand over his jaw. So you're carrying the kind of leverage people kill for, and you showed up in my truck without telling me. Her voice was calm, but there was a flicker of guilt. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Jack studied her for a long beat. Then you're not leaving. Not until we figure out how to end this on our terms. Outside, a car door slammed somewhere down the street, too close, too familiar. The sound of the car door echoed longer than it should have. Jack crossed to the front window and lifted the corner of the curtain. A silver SUV idled at the curb, sun glaring off its windshield. 2 men inside. Not the same pair from last night, these looked younger, cockier, and less patient. Mia had already moved to the kitchen doorway, knife in hand. They're here for me, she said. Jack shook his head. They're here for the envelope. You just happen to be attached to it. The SUV doors opened. Both men stepped out, scanning the street before walking up the drive like they had every right to be there. Jack met them halfway down the path, his stance loose but ready. House call? He asked. One smirked. Boss wants to talk to Mia. She can come quiet or loud. Your choice. Jack stepped in close enough for the man to feel the heat in his voice. She's not going anywhere. And neither are you unless you get back in that car. The other man shifted, reaching under his jacket, and that was the wrong move. In one motion, Jack grabbed his wrist, twisted, and used the momentum to drive him face first into the SUV's hood. The clang rang down the street. The smirker took a step back, but Mia was already behind him, blade glinting in the noon sun. Touch him again, she said, and I'll make sure you never use that hand. The man hesitated, calculating. Then he raised both palms and backed toward the SUV. His partner peeled off the hood, muttering curses. Seconds later, they were gone, tires squealing. Jack turned to Mia. You ever going to tell me where you learned to handle a knife like that? She gave the faintest smile. Family taught me plenty. Just not the kind you're thinking of. Jack didn't press. But he knew one thing for certain now, she wasn't just a survivor. She was a fighter. By evening, the street was quiet again, but Jack knew it was an illusion. Men like Mia's stepbrother didn't back down, they circled until you slipped. And he had no intention of slipping. He found her at the kitchen table, the envelope laid out between them like a live grenade. "You still have contacts who'd know how to move this information?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "A reporter in Portland. Trusted. Off the record until I say otherwise." "Good. We're not waiting for them to make the next move." Mia studied him. "You're talking about going to them. I'm talking about making them wonder if we're coming to them. Push them off balance." Jack slid a street map across the table, marking 3 locations in red ink, spots he'd clocked from the tail vehicles over the last 2 days. "These are their comfort zones. We rattle one, they'll scatter to protect the others." Mia leaned over the map, her finger tracing a circle around an industrial lot on the south edge of town. "That's his main stash spot. Weapons, cash, cars. If we hit it, they'll know someone fed us intel," Jack finished. Her gaze was steady. "I'm not afraid of them knowing." Jack packed the documents back into the envelope and tucked it into his jacket. "We go at first light. Less traffic, fewer witnesses." Mia sat back, exhaling slowly. "You sure about this?" He gave her the kind of look Marines used before a bad drop. "I've lived my life reacting to other people's fights. Time to pick one of my own." Somewhere outside, a motorcycle revved in the distance, a reminder the enemy wasn't far. This time, Jack hoped they were listening. Dawn broke pale and cold, the kind of light that made shadows look longer than they were. Jack drove with the headlights off until they hit the dirt road leading to the industrial lot. The place looked dead, chain-link fence sagging in spots, a few rusted-out trucks, corrugated warehouse walls streaked with rain stains. "Doesn't look like much," Jack murmured. Mia shook her head. "That's the point. Looks empty until you open the right door." They parked 2 blocks away and went in on foot. Jack moved like he was back on patrol, scanning angles, keeping her on his left where he could shield her. When they reached the fence, Mia pulled a small pair of bolt cutters from her hoodie pocket. Jack gave her a look that said, "We'll talk about why you own those later." Inside, the air smelled of oil and damp metal. A padlocked side door gave way to Jack's pry bar. The warehouse beyond was dim, the only light bleeding in from gaps in the sheet metal. Stacks of crates lined the walls. Mia pried one open, bricks of cash, wrapped tight in shrink wrap. Another held handguns, still in their foam cases. Jack let out a low whistle. "Enough here to put your stepbrother away for a decade." A voice cut through the shadows. "Only if you make it out." From the far end of the warehouse, 4 men emerged, the leader's grin sharp under the brim of his cap. Jack recognized him from the SUV. "You walked right in," the man said. "Makes my job easier." Jack stepped forward, body between Mia and the threat. "You sure about that?" The man raised a hand. 2 of his crew spread out, blocking the exit. The 4th slipped behind a stack of crates, likely circling. Mia's hand tightened around her knife. "We can still run," she whispered. Jack's eyes stayed locked on the leader. "We're not running. Not this time." The leader's grin widened as his men closed in. Jack's pulse slowed, the way it always had right before things went loud. The first man lunged, swinging a length of pipe. Jack sidestepped, caught his arm, and drove an elbow into his ribs hard enough to drop him. Mia was already moving, slipping past Jack's flank to meet the second man head-on. Her blade flashed once, precise, a clean slice across his forearm that sent his gun clattering to the floor. The leader cursed and drew his own pistol. Jack didn't think, he drove forward, shoulder-checking the man into a stack of crates. Cash spilled like confetti. The noise startled the 4th man coming around the side. Mia was on him in a blink, boot to his knee, knife to his throat. Jack pinned the leader's gun hand against the wall, forcing him to drop it. "You've been hunting her for weeks," Jack said, voice low, "but you should have been watching your own back." Mia tossed her stepbrother the envelope. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. "That's your kingdom," she said coldly. "And now it's evidence." From outside, sirens wailed closer. Jack's contact in the county sheriff's office, one of the few clean ones, had been waiting for his call. By the time deputies poured in, the crew was disarmed, the stash photographed, and Mia standing under the thin morning light, hoodie unzipped for the first time. Later, on Jack's porch, Emma sat between them, oblivious to the danger that had just burned out. "Can Mia stay for dinner again?" she asked. Mia smiled. "If your dad's okay with it." Jack looked at her, then at the quiet street. "I think we've both had enough running for a while." The fight was over, but as the sun broke through the clouds, Jack knew some battles were worth stepping back into, the kind where you came out with more than you started with. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.